Hi, hello to anybody who is here. We are live with Adam from Tabletop Minions as well as Kris. And let's see if I can turn. Hello. There we go. All right. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today. I'm hoping for this to be kind of a monthly show where we all get together and talk about not only wargaming stuff, but also other hobbies we might have. In this case, all three of us have in common that we really love movies. So we're going to talk about that today while we paint stuff real quick. I'm painting some Hadros models for Wrath of Kings.
Nice. Fishman.
Yes, the best faction, of course.
Indeed.
And what are you working on, Adam?
I'm working on some GW Vampire Counts skeletons as opposed to Tomb King skeletons who get a little bit more Egyptian. I'm using them not for fantasy but for a game called Song of Blades and Heroes, which I've talked about before on the channel. And I'm also going to be using, I'm basically kind of doing about 5 of them, and they're all going to be sort of test models to some degree, and then the 6th one I'm actually going to do a tutorial about on my channel.
Oh, nice. That's exciting.
Yeah.
What about you, Kris? What are you working on?
I'm just going to be simply working on... I picked up... Sorry, paper's all over the place here. I picked up Bandai TIE Fighter.
Nice.
And so I'm going to be getting him all ready to go. And
oh, nice.
And so yeah, because we all love Star Wars,
and might I add, what good timing.
Yeah, and these Bandai kits. The rumor is that they're not going to be sold in North America, or somebody's trying to stop them being sold in North America. So try to hurry up and snap them up real fast.
What is even the point of that?
There's another model company that does Star Wars. They have the licensing for Star Wars, and so, yeah, they're trying to stop Bandai from importing into North America.
Excellent.
But I don't think it'll go, but you never know. And, maybe it's just, baloney that they're just serving up and, just to kind of drum up more sales. But the kits, the kits are just beautiful, so... Try to hurry up. Oh, jeez. And so, yeah.
Wow. All right. So Star Wars, GW models, and Wrath of Kings. We've got all representation. Well, 3 representations here. So, anyway, well, before we go into actually what movies we've watched, just so people, and so I also have kind of a frame of reference. What kind of movies are your favorite movies? I know I like fantasy, sci-fi, some horror. A lot of it scares me. Things like that. What about you, Adam, Kris?
Well, I kind of run the gamut as far as that's concerned. I do have a tendency to enjoy sci-fi and also fantasy to some degree. I didn't used to be a big fantasy fan. I've still never really seen Willow. I know. Although we're actually playing it at the local, we've got a small community volunteer-run movie theater here in town, which I volunteer at, and we're playing it in November, so I might be able to catch it then. I have an actual, on my phone, here we go, I have a note that lets me know what my favorite movies are so I can remember them. Because sometimes you forget, right? So, talking about science fiction, Blade Runner is in my top 5. The Mad Max series, going all the way from the original Mad Max to Road Warrior to Thunderdome to the New Fury Road. It's a cop-out in saying that entire line of movies is also in my top 5. Original RoboCop. There were never any sequels made for that movie. You may have heard there were, but there weren't. Original RoboCop. And then Big Lebowski is in my top 5, and so is Grosse Point Blank, which is, yeah, totally. Grosse Point Blank, which is one of my favorites as far as John Cusack and Minnie Driver and all that. I don't know have you both seen that movie?
Yep.
Yeah, that's it's astounding how literally I didn't watch it for probably 5 years, and then I got it on Blu-ray and popped it in, and I could like say half the lines just like as they were going. You know, it was great.
Fantastic. Oh man, top 5. All right, Kris, what about you then?
Top 5? Geez, that's hard. I mean, we're
See,
talking.
that's why you gotta keep the notes in your phone so you can remember.
Your phone needs to be your brain for you, of course.
Exactly.
Well, because the top 5 list is an ever evolving. Like, okay, we were talking John Cusack, High Fidelity.
Yeah.
That's one of those great classic movies. That's basically a guy's chick flick. High Fidelity.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Top 5 would be like Aliens is like in that close to number 1 spot, if not number 1 spot.
Yeah.
And Empire Strikes Back. We're talking, oh man, jeez, Apocalypse Now.
Oh gosh, Apocalypse. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of the wartimey movies? Like
Yeah, Full Metal Jacket's another one that's up there.
Yeah.
Jeez, man, it's hard. Like sci-fi's. I mean, Blade Runner. Of course, Blade Runner is up there as well. Indiana Jones. You know, it's tough. It's tough to make a top 5 list because I mean, a movie like that just came out recently, like John Wick, can easily knock any of those movies out of place.
Yeah, John Wick was really good.
Yeah, John Wick is a badass movie, and
it was good. I don't know why people went quite as crazy about it. Like, people were like, no, The Equalizer is very good, but John Wick is amazing. I'm like, why?
Well, yeah,
I think
The Equalizer was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a big Denzel fan.
Yeah.
But
I honestly think that John Wick, one of the things that's most amazing about the movie is the world building that they put into it that they didn't have to sit down and try to explain. Like there's that hotel.
Or it didn't even bother to try and explain it.
Right, exactly. You know, there's this hotel, and you give these people these gold doubloons, and things go on, and you can't do business there, and all this stuff, and like you're watching it as at least as an American filmmaker or film goer, where you're like, they're not spoon feeding me what exactly is going on. They're just like, this is what's going on, and we're not going to exactly explain it, and that's part of the coolness. That and I mean, the action itself was really cool. Just I don't know.
Oh yeah, a lot of the fight scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. I like that it isn't putting you into an origin story. I mean, having watched all of the superhero movies that have ever come out, I'm so sick of Batman's origin story. I'm so sick of Spider-Man's origin story.
Yeah.
And so I'm coming just right in. But at the same time, like, while I have no problems with John Wick, it was fine. I just don't understand like why The Equalizer wouldn't get as much applause as John Wick.
Because The Equalizer, he's too human.
So it's because he's not like a cartoon badass.
Yeah, exactly.
It's possible, yeah. You know, it seems, I don't want to say it seems more real, but it does seem a little bit more real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, and in John Wick's universe it's a comic book universe, whereas Equalizer is that's real, man. That guy's out there.
Yeah.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
He does such a good job.
Okay, top 5 Denzel movies.
I liked Fallen a lot until the very ending. Trying to think of what else. I have to pull up stuff he's in. I'm so horrible at thinking of movies off the top of my head.
Training Day. Training Day is really good.
Of course.
Yeah.
That one. I haven't seen that one.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You ever watch Training Day?
No. I know.
It's Ethan Hawke.
Yeah. And I generally don't like Ethan Hawke, but he was good in that.
He's alright.
I don't think I've liked him. I've disliked him probably since the movie Single. No, not Singles. What was that other one? Reality Bites. Ugh.
Oh.
Reality Bites. Because I was so annoyed with his character in that movie. So I've just, of course, I just assume that's the way he is, and so that's the way it works. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Do you think
I like Denzel Washington, but I don't know that I've actually seen so many of his movies. American Gangster was one.
Oh, that's really good. Yeah.
That's with Josh Brolin? Oh, that was a really good one.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah. Inside Man, I remember watching.
Yeah, that one was alright.
But I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, I don't think I saw that one. I may have seen parts.
You want me to spoil it for you?
I'm assuming. I was assuming it was an inside job. Yeah, I don't know exactly what. I think it was the title that helped.
Yeah, just a spoiler. He's the inside man.
Oh, okay. Which is always unfortunate. I feel bad whenever movies are so forgettable.
Okay,
It's the worst place for them.
So I don't think we got to Miranda's top 5.
I was dodging you guys. Just think about this. Well, Talented Mr. Ripley's up there. I think that's just a complete masterpiece of cinematography and story and.
But yet you said you don't like Matt Damon.
I don't typically,
Oh.
but he's in a lot of good movies. I just don't like his I don't know, outside of the movies stuff. I guess he ever since the ALS bucket and everything, he's like, well, I'm gonna use toilet water, and I don't know. He's like, no, I don't think you are quite being as respectful as you think you are because you live in this crazy multi-million-dollar house and you're gonna go take a 40-minute shower after this. So I don't know that the water conservation is really happening the way you think it is. But yes, either way, he's amazing in The Talented Mr. Ripley. He's completely fantastic. I mean, I also like him in Good Will Hunting. He's in just a lot of good movies. But I also thought Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow did an amazing job. It's just one of those movies that I've watched multiple times, and every time I watch it, every single scene, every way the scene is even framed is motivated. There's nothing that's wasted in there. All the facial expressions, the tics that the characters have, all build into the story of who, how it affects Matt Damon and who these other characters are. I don't know, I love it. It's my example of what I think is what to shoot for when you're trying to make a character piece in this case. I'm also a huge fan of The Fifth Element. I think that's the greatest movies ever. One of the reasons being that it's one of the few movies I would say that the characters, the actors, are more important than the story. So you think about the story to it, not a lot is really happening. Anybody could kind of write that story, but those actors make it a story. They just bring it. So I thought that was really cool. Mila Jovovich invented her own language for that movie.
Yeah.
And what other ones are amazing to me? Big fan of The Last Unicorn because it's a childhood classic for me.
Last Unicorn?
Hell yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that one.
No, it's actually just really good in general. Peter S. Beagle, it's met him a couple times. It's one of his best works, and he's done other stuff, obviously, but it's just, it's one of those, it's about a unicorn, but it's actually a story that appeals to any gender because it's about this character who, changes and how they handle it. I don't know. There's deep stuff in there that I guess I'm not really worried about spoiling it, but the unicorn is an interestingly weak character, and I really love the way it just explains heroism. So to me, I love heroic acts. Anytime I see a movie, Iron Giant, that just made me cry because it is really beautiful, and so there's those moments in there.
We just showed that at the theater back in the late spring, early summer, and that had a really good turnout too.
Yeah.
That was cool to see on the big screen again for because it's been quite some time. Although, aren't they going to redo it, or they were going to reissue it? Yeah.
Yeah, is what I hear. So.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessary. A live action would be really kind of cool, but. They change it around too much, and
also very beautiful and simple story. So where do you pick up the sequel? Is Hogar grown up? Does the guy come back? Because the way it ends kind of makes you think he doesn't. So they'd have to just take it from a whole different point. It seems like we'd have to have all different characters, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it could even be a prequel and it talks about where the Iron Giant came from. That could be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like the fact that we don't know. I like mysteries in it, and all these times, they want to do these prequels and explain away everything. It's oh my lord! No, just leave it a mystery. That's what makes it great. That's what makes it controversial. That's what gets people interested in talking about something. Is that they don't explain away everything. Everything doesn't need to be explained.
Well, then you just get Lindelof in there to write it, and you won't get any answers.
That's a good point. I remember being a little kid and watching The Birds, the Hitchcock movie,
Yep.
and asking my parents, I'm like, well, why are the birds doing that? And they're like, well, nobody knows. And I'm like, well, is there like a nuclear accident or what is it? Well, nobody knows. And I just kept coming up with new reasons why it might be happening, and they were like, well, that's the point. Nobody knows. And that's great in certain situations, but I have to admit that like I just watched The Birds probably in the last year for some reason. Did we show it at the theater? I don't exactly know why I watched it.
Yeah.
And man, it doesn't strike me. I don't know. I mean, there's parts of it that don't strike me because they're so dated. And I'm not talking about special effects. I'm just talking about like the way women are treated, and stuff like that, and that kind of stuff. But there are other times where I'm just like, this is boring. I mean, there's some. Yeah, I know it's a horrible thing to say that about a Hitchcock film, but I really am not a big fan of The Birds. Now, Psycho, Vertigo, those are great. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But The Birds just doesn't quite do it for me.
Fair enough.
There's a YouTuber out there. He does like film critiques and stuff like that, and I can't remember what his name is now. But he was making the comparison that The Birds might actually be like the first zombie movie.
What?
Well, because it's an antagonist that you don't understand and you don't know why it's doing what it's doing. You know what I mean? And they're not bothering to tell you because that's not the important part. It's more the.
Well, yeah, Hitchcock was always a big fan of the MacGuffins.
Right, but it's this increasing dread and this you're not going to win. That's what makes a zombie movie good. Like, anytime in the zombie movies they have to sit down and really explain what caused it, you're like, that's not really the important part. You know what I mean? Like, that was the issue with the Walking Dead TV show, is like in the first season they explained what it was. And they're like, you're just kind of wasting time. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, MacGuffin is what Hitchcock would always refer to it as.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's a thing. It's a bomb. It's a whatever. They're there. Now, can we get on with the story?
Yeah, it's the suitcase in Pulp Fiction.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you never know what was in there, and it's not important.
Yeah, exactly. And people are fine with that. Nobody needs an explanation as to what the heck that is.
Well, some people seem to need to know that, but
there's many theories floating around.
Yeah.
But
I wonder how much that's even a training, because you are given you do have so many origin stories shoved down your throat, and it is fun to speculate.
Certainly. Yeah.
And
That's
so it's easy to get into debates of like, no, this is the reason why this happened, but.
Right, but that's
necessary for the filmmaker to have to.
But that's what makes a really great movie, is that the fact that he can do that, and then here we are, 20 years later, still talking about it, and
Why were those damn birds chasing those people? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, that's about 60 years, but.
True.
Yeah, I just checked it. I guess The Birds came out before Night of the Living Dead, which was also, for whatever reason, one of my favorite movies as a little kid. I just wanted to watch the movie over and over again.
Oh yeah, it's rare. I mean, like just the style of it is just creepy as all. But
well, it's interesting, right? I mean, very low budget, but doesn't quite explain. I mean, I guess UFOs are kind of a reason for why the dead rise. But
was it UFOs or was it a comet? I don't remember. I haven't seen it in a long time.
I thought it was aliens. Apparently.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a comet, unless it's the comet I'm thinking of.
Yeah, there was that movie too. Was that Nicolas Cage?
No, was it?
Oh no, that was Valley Girls. Or was that Night of the Comet? There's a lot of different movies.
Yeah,
I should have a separate computer up with IMDb up there too.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to go over all the ones that I've seen this year, because I've seen a ton, but. Someone asks, so what have you seen this year? I'm like, and like going into my pockets because I don't throw away my movie stubs. So I look like I'm homeless half the time because I'm like pulling papers out. But there's a lot of movies that came out this year that just don't end up, you remember. I mean, Jupiter Ascending, you're like, that was really cool until I saw it. And,
I actually didn't mind that one.
My wife and I went to see it, actually, because we'd been reading a lot about how it was very female-centered sci-fi, and so we wanted to give it a try. And it was crackers. I mean, it was crazy as hell, don't get me wrong, and there's a lot of it that didn't make a lot of sense, but I don't know. It was fun to watch. I mean, I don't know that I'm going to buy a copy on Blu-ray, unless maybe it's like $7. but otherwise, no.
I don't know if I'd buy it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I wasn't appalled by it.
I don't know. Like it's a movie for girls the way like Miss America is for girls. Like, oh look, this beautiful movie and this great. I mean, the cinematography was decent, no doubt, and it was mostly the special effects that carried it. But what? I mean, like, running around in a dress. Like, Terry Gilliam gets a hold of a scene, and you're like, what is going on around here? Why is everybody mad? And the motivations, like, Mila Kunis, like, I just thought was a horrible character. Like, I like her a lot normally, but
yeah, no,
I'm angry at her in that movie.
She just sort of kind of walked around a lot, and well, I mean, that was kind of the story. Obviously, she didn't know what was going on, you know. But yeah.
No, it was very upsetting, and I heard that a lot too. Like, oh, this is a movie for girls, which kind of seems insulting because it's like, then you're saying girls don't care about stories. Literally, it's just put something pretty and shiny in front of them, and you're entertained.
I get the feeling that the media, and I see this more and more. I was just thinking about this recently. The media has a tendency to pick up on a story, or someone says something, and then someone else, rather than reporting or figuring something out, just kind of parrots that. You know what I mean? And they have this narrative that this is the way it is, and so that's what they're just all going to say. And then you're like, well, actually, maybe it's this. But they're like, oh, no, we've come up with the narrative already. You know what I mean? It's just odd. Like, you see that in politics all the time. You see it in...
Yeah.
Well, it's because we live in the too long, didn't read era.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's certainly it, too.
It's a shortcut to thinking.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. And nobody wants to think these days.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people do. It's just... It is easy to get overwhelmed. I mean, you get spammed with ads or people trying to, I don't know, just people with really strong opinions on things that in order for their voice to carry, they have to put it down. They have to simmer it down to like a slogan. I mean, it is what propaganda is, I guess, but...
Well, I mean, you only have so much time these days, too, as far as, like, you know, you've got to get people's attention in a very quick amount of time.
Exactly. Or you lose the attention span, and then people wander off and... I don't know. It's one of those annoying things that it's easy to pick on us as kind of a country for, but I don't know that we're necessarily the only ones that do it either.
Have any of you seen a movie based off of a war game? Huh? See how I'm bringing it back?
I've seen Space Marine. Isn't it Space Marine?
Oh, that was terrible. Ultramarine.
Ultramarine, yeah.
Ultramarine. Yeah, a friend of mine bought that on DVD, and we watched it, and it was terrible. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Did either of you ever see Mutant Chronicles?
No.
Yes. Oh, I barely remember this. Oh my goodness, yes. I remember seeing this, and I didn't realize what Mutant Chronicles quite was at the time. Like, it seemed weirdly familiar, and then it clicked.
Yeah.
Really? Like, you made a movie about this?
Yeah, Ron Perlman. Is it Thomas? Not Thomas Jane. Was it Thomas Jane? I don't remember who the main character was.
No.
Might have been Thomas Jane, and then Ron Perlman was like a priest or something, and it was vaguely based off of the lore from the original Mutant Chronicles Warzone, you know, universe and everything like that. But
and that game's got a great universe.
Yeah,
potentially definitely. You're like alongside like 40K.
Oh yeah. But they've just never quite been able to pull it off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know right now they've kind of done a reboot on Warzone. It's by a company called Prodos Games, and the models, I haven't really looked at the rules much. I looked at a little bit at Adepticon, and the guy kind of explained some kind of high concept stuff to me, you know. But man, the models looked really, really good. They're resin, so sometimes that can help just because you can get so much more detail. But you know, every once in a while you also get a weird bendy sword too. So, but man, there was a couple of the models. I took pictures and they were really, I was amazed. So they were better than the movie in my opinion.
Oh, I can't even speak. Mutant Chronicles is such a. I think I saw it because it was in the dollar movies, and I kind of have no standard at all when it comes to seeing something at the dollar theater, and so.
Oh yeah, no, I mean there was this great film that I saw at the cheap theater back, geez Louise, in the early '90s, called Hardware. Have you guys seen that?
The Hardware? No.
It was just called Hardware. It was Dylan McDermott, one of his earliest films. Lemmy from Motorhead was in it. Iggy Pop was in it.
awesome.
It was like post-apocalyptic, and Dylan McDermott's character, he just kind of like walked around the desert, and he was a scavenger, and he found this like old beat-up battle droid, and he took the components back to his girlfriend's apartment, and she used them because she was a sculptor, and so she was building this big sculpture for a mega corporation to like put it. It was very ahead of its time and very kind of Shadowrun, cyberpunky kind of to some degree. So he took this thing back to their apartment so she could use it and implement the parts of it into the sculpture that was going to go in this mega corporation's, front lobby or whatever. And over the course of the movie, it like started to put itself back together because that was part of its protocol, was to fix itself when it was broken, and it got activated, and then it started chasing her around the apartment. So it's kind of Terminator-y looking in that it's got like a skull kind of head, and it's skeletal to some degree, but it's only partially put back together. But it was very well done because there was no CG. It was all just like puppetry and kept in the dark, so that when you're doing that, you can't tell, how hokey it looks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was really, really, I don't know, I enjoyed it, and that was one of those where I was just like, well, it's $1.50 at the theater, I'm going to go see it. Like I said, this was like in the 90s at some point.
It was 1990, actually.
Was it 1990? Yeah. But it's a cool movie. Are
you consulting IMDb right away?
That's a good idea, I think, frankly.
Yeah. I'm not going to remember this stuff, so. Plus, like this one, I totally don't want to see. It seems familiar, but I have not seen it.
Yeah, no, it was a neat little film. Like I said, the thing that impressed me the most was just how they kept the monster kind of in the dark. Well, the robot, like in the dark, and it looked really good because you couldn't really see it, and your brain really was like,
Well, they had to really do that a lot in like the 80s and the early 90s.
Oh, absolutely.
So, Jurassic Park, that you're really seeing the effects, where CG had kind of arrived.
Yeah, I mean, Last Starfighter is some of the earliest CG you'll see out there, but it doesn't look awesome. No. On the other hand, they were also cheating in that it was basically non-organic shapes in space, which for CG is about the easiest thing you can do, I think.
Well, that came in 85, 86 as well?
Yeah, I think it was mid-80s, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the computers weren't really there yet.
No, of course not.
And I hear a rumor that is actually going to get the reboot.
Ugh. I am against reboots for the most part. I just wish that they could just come up with new stuff as opposed to constantly rebooting. God forbid they ever make a reboot of RoboCop. I would be crushed.
I know. Let's just hope that never happens.
I'm assuming they can't. I mean, really.
That's right. Gosh, RoboCop was so weird because it's so incredibly ultra-violent.
Yeah, and I have the Blu-ray that's the uncut version or something like that that's added like another 45 seconds pretty much just of violence as far as I can tell. I think it's that scene where Murphy...
Deleted.
It's like that scene where Murphy is like, where the bad guys have him at the beginning and they blow off all of his arms and legs and stuff, and it's basically just another minute of that.
Yeah. And in fact, it explains why he's in the position that he's in when you see him and he gets blasted in the head. Because that whole sequence where he gets blasted, it's like...
Yeah. I've seen that movie probably 40 times at this point in my life, and it's probably one of my biggest favorites.
My goodness, wow. Earlier movies like that, actually, just to go back to the war game thing one, it's not official, but I'm pretty sure that Chronicles of Riddick and Riddick in general is 40K.
It's pretty 40K. I get that feeling, yeah.
There is fan films. There is super high budget fan films that are interesting.
I really liked Chronicle of Riddick because, again, with all of the world building that they didn't necessarily have to explain, and I mean, I really was honestly, that was a movie I was hoping there was going to be like a good sequel and kind of go and do some stuff with, but they didn't too much.
No, they didn't do nothing for that sequel. For the next one?
Well, wait a minute. Was Chronicles of Riddick the most recent one, or?
No,
No.
Chronicles of Riddick was the one with the necromongers and all that stuff, and like at the end of the movie, he basically became the king of the
that's right.
necromongers. And it's like they put you on this like well, here's the ending and here's the cliffhanger, and you're like, oh sweet, and then they just never went on with it,
Yeah.
Well, they did that with Christopher Nolan's Batman too. They're like, and here's this whole story that just gets Robin ready to launch.
Yeah.
How about another origin story, folks?
Ugh. What would happen? Like, what would happen if you made a movie like a well-known, like a Batman, a Superman, a Spider-Man, and you didn't do the origin story? Would people just be like, well, I don't know who this character is at all? I mean, honestly, really? Like, you've seen it how many times? I guess grandmas and grandpas and things like that who've never read a comic book might be like, well, I don't know what that is. But yeah, it just seems odd to me that they constantly have to waste usually most of the first movie explaining who Spider-Man is. We kind of get it, you know what I mean? It's just, and aren't they rebooting Spider-Man a third or fourth time now? Ugh.
A lot since like the 90s. It's just been excessive. Now, technically, it's one of the interesting things happening with the Marvel universe right now. The Avengers isn't an origin story of any of the individual ones. I mean, it forges them as a group, but they all have their own backstories.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yep.
So you do, and as a result, obviously, it's one of the biggest movies in the world. So I do think it's a process that worked. And as you were pointing out with John Wick, people don't need to see that every time.
No.
No, I agree as well. Yeah, and it seems like they have to waste too much of the film real estate time-wise. You know what I mean? When they decide, well, we got to explain, how he got bit by a radioactive spider again. I mean, I would think if you were in the movie theater, you could probably be like, how did he get to be like that? And your person next to you would be like, radioactive spider, and you'd be like, okay, cool. I mean, that would save so much time.
Yeah.
Well, especially since they tweak it constantly. You know what I mean? They move it around and they change things and how it happens.
Well, and to be fair, comics do that too. Comics
Certainly.
are like horribly inconsistent within their own world too.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe that's really what that's doing. They're like, no, we're being just like the comics, and that you're gonna get angry with us very soon. I would argue, I guess, James Bond, not really an origin story to James Bond as much. I mean, somewhat. Skyfall was interesting as far as...
Casino Royale is the prequel.
The original Casino Royale? Or the new one?
The one with Daniel Craig, the one that recently came out like the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a prequel. That's the beginning of James Bond.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like at the beginning, you see like his first kill.
Yeah, in the very beginning of the movie, he's not 007.
Huh.
Yeah. So
but it's like black and white or something, isn't it?
What's that?
Isn't that segment in black and white or something like that, or?
In Casino Royale, yeah.
Yeah, at the very beginning, yeah.
Yeah, it's all black and white, and it's him making his first kill. I guess to be a 00, you have to have 2 kills, and that's why they get 00s, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, it's and the whole opening sequence of like the famous staring down the barrel at James Bond, and then the blood runs down the screen. I guess that's really the first guy who's ever tried to kill James Bond, and obviously missed and messed it up.
Failed.
But yeah, I'm kind of excited to see the new film coming out.
Spectre. I'm looking forward to it. I friggin' hate the song vehemently.
I don't think I've heard the song.
The song? You don't love that song? Oh my god. I had no idea who the hell Sam Smith was until I heard that he was doing this theme song. Yeah. I listened to this theme song and I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh god.
Not that I'm a fan of Sam Smith then.
It seems like something you'd hear on like WB Late Night or whenever Warner Brothers had their teen shows, and like sort of that.
Well, it has a very sad tone to it, which I think is going to be a very kind of a running theme in the movie. That it's going to be very sad because I think this iteration of James Bond is going to be coming to an end soon enough.
It's not Daniel Craig's last foray into being Bond, is it?
For a while there was talk about it, and then he recently came out and said, no, it's not, I think.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because there was that talk about Idris Elba doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big kerfuffle for a while there and everything. But yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah.
think
Speaking of Idris Elba, my wife and I love Pacific Rim.
Yes.
I mean, you know, Benicio del Toro first of all, and then just I don't know, all that stuff. Just we really loved it, and I keep wishing. There's talk back and forth about them making a second one, and you know, it's on again, it's off again, and all that stuff. But I don't know that it needs a second one. I don't need there needs to be a sequel because I really enjoyed the first one, and you know, I can watch it whenever, and that's cool. But
like with Pacific Rim, like I don't think it needs a sequel, but I think there is another one coming out. But the thing that got me about Pacific Rim is why couldn't they build those plasma cannons onto the big wall that they were building?
well, you see, because big robots are way cooler than walls is the
Right,
short
because-
answer. I think you know.
You have to remember, Chris, when you watch Pacific Rim, and one of the things that's interesting about it is you are watching a live-action anime, and all the logic that comes from anime.
That's very
I
true
guess.
too.
I like anime though. I like a
Well,
lot.
that's fine, but I mean, you gotta agree. Like, people in anime act weird, and they don't go through things as logically as they should. I mean, I watched a whole season of Attack on Titan and felt like there was 20 minutes of actual story in that whole season because people like,
that I agree.
pirate on.
Yeah, I didn't even make it through the entire season, and I was like, what the hell is going on here? Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, what's this going on? Okay, what now? And then I said, okay, I lost it.
They had it like scientifically tuned to give you just enough information to want to go to the next episode while simultaneously like frothing at the mouth with how much you're like sick of hearing about how the characters are concerned whether or not they're good leaders while their teammates are actively dying around them because they're not making a decision about what to do at that moment. People are getting eaten, and it's just all out of hand. I felt that way about Evangelion too when I watched that because Shinji is a tool bag and I just hate him.
I never really watched that one because I know that one was on TV for a while. Like my favorite all-time anime is Robotech. That's the greatest.
Yeah, we've got the whole season here.
Yeah, that's the greatest one ever.
Yeah.
I used to watch that and Voltron when I would get home from school when I was a kid.
Yeah, Voltron.
That was always fun. Yeah.
So
how come they don't make a live action Voltron or Robotech if they wanted?
Well, I can tell you about Robotech, the company that owns it. I need to remember his name again. They are horrible about rights. Like they don't want to give you the rights to do anything. It's why it's been so stifled as far as movies. Rights to those movies were inconsistent, and like merchandise. You haven't really seen much of that.
There was the Robotech miniatures game, which was a big mess to some degree, from what I understand. You'll notice the miniatures game is referred to as I think it's called Robotech RPG Tactics.
Yeah.
And they had to call it an RPG because there was some sort of problem with the licensing if it was a miniatures game, which it's a miniatures game, but they called it RPG Tactics so that it would be an RPG, even though it's not. And it has to do partially with BattleTech, because BattleTech, a lot of the original BattleTech mechs are basically just, Robotech stuff, and there was a back and forth, and I've heard about weird licensing issues and stuff like that for years back and forth. So.
Yeah, and I don't quite know why, but Harmony Gold.
Harmony Gold, right?
Harmony Gold.
That is the center of why you don't have a Robotech movie.
Yeah.
Where can I write them?
Japan, probably Japan.
Hate mail to like 123 Don't Care Street.
I'll write them an angry Milton letter.
Speaking of Milton, just watched Office Space, like probably about a week ago, actually.
For the first time?
No. Just I hadn't watched it in a while, and then it was like on TV, and it was a lazy Sunday or something like that, and we just ended up watching it. And it was one of those movies where you're watching it on television, and you're like, should I just put the DVD or the Blu-ray in, or or nah, I don't know. And then you eventually watch the whole thing with commercials, which annoys me, but that's where it is.
That's just poor discipline, Adam.
I know, it is. It's just because you're just like, okay, pretty soon I'm going to get up and put in that Blu-ray or whatever the deal is. Sundays are the worst. It's actually good now that football's on.
Over and you don't really feel like doing anything.
My wife watches a lot of football, and then we don't end up watching Sunday movies and stuff, and I'm doing other things because I'm not a football fan. So yeah.
Fair enough.
Like football, American football, or
American football. Although I've got some friends who've been watching Canadian football recently, just because the American football season hadn't started yet. So they were watching that, and they like hockey anyway. So it was interesting. There's a lot of different rules and stuff, I guess. So
yeah.
So that's cool.
Have you seen randomly about hockey? Have you seen the movie Goon?
It's been on my Netflix queue for probably 2 years, and I just never pull the trigger.
It's worth it. We saw it like a week ago because Kevin Smith was talking. No, what's his name? Scott William. Main actor.
Sean William Scott.
Sean William Scott. Yeah, he was on the Kevin Culp show talking about it, and.
Oh, Stifler.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, he's in that. Yeah.
And it's a really interesting movie. I mean, you don't typically see hockey movies because I don't think there's so much of an audience for it. I mean, there's a lot of hockey fans, but it's not really enough to be like a big audience.
Yeah.
It's brutal. I mean, there are scenes where you're like, no, just stop, just right there. Because anytime I see like someone's teeth getting knocked out, I just
what I like about it is that Scott Stifler, he plays a good old American boy in amongst all the barbarian Canadians, and
Well, based on like a true story.
Yeah, that is a true story.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's funny though. It's Adam, it's worth a watch.
Yeah,
if you're into it. It's really, really crude humor.
Yeah.
It is. But it's a fun movie, and it is an interesting movie. I mean, just to kind of see what that guy's values are. He's a really good-natured guy. Like, you're totally rooting for him.
Well, it's funny because, I mean, like, it's a Canadian movie, and the American is this really sweet, gentle kind of guy, and all the Canadians are just awful people, and when usually the stereotype is Canadians are really good mannered.
That's true. It's usually the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're picking on the French Canadians, and apparently they're different. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, no.
French Canadians in that movie.
Yeah, no, and then the Islanders as well.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, they're a different breed.
Before I said Benicio del Toro, but I meant Guillermo del Toro. He's the one who directed Pacific Rim. I'm looking at the comments, by the way. Are you guys looking at the comments at all?
Yeah, I'm looking back and forth. I'm just going to say that you guys keep stepping on me before I can.
Sorry.
Everybody there say, gosh, Adam, I'm not just sitting here painting.
Twisted Bishop, I'm sorry, it's not Benicio del Toro. I don't even know who that is. Guillermo del Toro.
Benicio del Toro. He's the he's the collector from...
Yeah.
Oh yeah, see, it's not my fault. It's the fact that they have nearly the same name, really.
That's right. It's the actor's fault.
Indeed, as is usually the case.
He's a really good actor. He totally
awesome.
Melds into his characters enough where you don't recognize him. He's great in The Usual Suspects. If you guys have seen that one.
Yeah, I love him in. I would say probably the movie I love him in the most is probably Snatch.
Yep.
Snatch is probably.
Good old Guy Ritchie. Snatch is a great one.
Yeah, it's probably one of my top 15, I bet. Yeah.
Really like the soundtrack a lot to it. I keep collecting movie soundtracks, and that's one of them I have.
The one movie that I saw where you first see him is the one with Alicia Silverstone, and he's kidnapped her. And the first time I watched that movie, I was like, this guy, like, who is this guy? Yeah. And sure enough, all of a sudden you just start seeing this guy showing up in every other movie, and yeah, he's a really, really great actor. And there's this new movie out with him, Sicario.
Yeah. Sicario. Yeah.
Really, really good.
What movie was that?
Really dark kind of roles lately, but I think he likes the dark kind of roles because apparently he's going to be in the new Star Wars movie, like the next.
The one next.
Yeah, Part 8.
I see.
Because apparently he's going to be the bad guy in that one.
What movie was that with him and Alicia Silverstone?
Something baggage. Excess baggage.
Oh yeah, vaguely. It was more of a comedy-ish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
comedy.
yeah.
Excess baggage, and I have not seen that one.
Gotcha.
No, don't. It's well, I mean, Benicio is very funny in that movie, but otherwise, you got to sit through an Alicia Silverstone platform, and yeah.
Wasn't she in Encino Man? She was the interesting.
She was in that Blast from the Past. She was in that with what's his name, Brendan Fraser. That was actually not bad. I liked that movie.
Yeah.
Or Legally Blonde.
No,
that was Reese
one of
Witherspoon.
the few movies I couldn't sit through, but that was Reese Witherspoon.
Oh yeah, okay, Reese. Yeah.
Although she's hilarious in Hot Pursuit, the one that came out this year. Her and Sofia Vargas. It's surprisingly entertaining.
Yeah.
Where she's the cop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this Midwestern, teeny tiny little cop, and Sofia Vargas is a hilarious woman.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to listen to her though.
Sounds like in New Mexico. There's nothing like hard about it.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if it's that. It's almost Fran Drescher-esque kind of.
Oh, her cadence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I can see that. It's
that and like Rosie Perez, and you know what I mean. Like they're just completely. It's just genital shriveling type of tones out of their mouths, and it's just yeah.
Fran is probably the worst, at least in my opinion. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's not good. It's not good.
Actually, I do want to pull up the list of the movies that have come out this year. I did this prematurely, and then you guys started referencing a bunch of older movies that I wasn't prepared for.
You had two old dogs on the show. What'd you expect?
Really? Really?
Well, and I've seen a lot of them, but gosh, there's just I wish I could remember movies better. I usually have to keep rewatching them for it to really
same here.
remember all the plot points and be able to explain to somebody what happens. Because otherwise I'm like, no, that was really fun, and some stuff happened here, and I can't remember why they did this thing, but they were here, and it drives people crazy. McFarland USA was a good movie. Kevin Costner's been coming back, if you haven't noticed.
Oh, okay, yeah, I didn't see that, but I know what you're talking about. I saw commercials.
Yeah, it's about a cross-country team, and it's good times. Which reminds me of this other movie that was shot out here in New Mexico, actually, Spare Parts. Yeah. And it's about kind of an underprivileged school entering MIT robotics competition.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those movies where you're like, you're going to go in, you get to see people have all this heart and put in real effort, but it was a true story, and I love those movies. They do feel good. I love that. I love seeing people overcome, and I guess I like war movies for that reason in a lot of cases too.
A lot of war movies have a feel-good ending to them.
What's that?
A lot of war movies have a feel-good ending to them.
No, but it's
some do.
Like, oh well, this is really horrible, and
right, yeah.
What you deal with, and then you see these moments of people helping each other out. I mean, World War II movies go on forever doing that, and then there was a lot of real stories that happened in World War II, like the officer or the POW who was like walled into one of the walls at the concentration camp before the Allies were coming in, and like one of the German soldiers was feeding him because he's not a monster.
Sure, yeah.
And so
I just find that a lot of times these World War II stories, a lot of them are a little bit over glorified. Versus where they really start to demonize Vietnam stories, and
there's a very different there's a very different kind of I know exactly what you mean. Like there's this kind of rose-tinted glasses thing to some degree with World War II, though not always. I mean, and I think it's changing obviously these days. Have you guys seen Fury?
Yeah.
Well, see that's one example that I'm thinking like is it kind of it's a tale of heroism. These men make a final stand, but
but they weren't necessarily heroes. At least not all of them. You know what I mean? Like you didn't like them somewhat. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, like the whole scene where they're going through the Danish town, or is it a German? No, it's a Danish town, and where they're playing house for a while with the two girls.
Yeah, that's an uncomfortable scene.
It's very uncomfortable, and like when they talk about like the American forces crusading through Europe to save the French and everything like that, I seriously doubt it was very everybody was I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, but like as peaceful as what it would be. You would still have a lot of resistance of on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And they always portray it like as soon as the Americans cross into the city limits, everybody's yay, come on into my house, and what I mean, and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that happened in some places and then just not in others. I mean, you don't know what everybody was being told at the time. They don't have mass media. I mean,
right.
In Japan, during Pacific Theater, I mean, people were being told that Marines had to eat a baby to be a Marine, and
right, yeah.
They were so terrified of the Americans coming over, they were killing themselves. And
yeah, and that really speaks to like the difference in times, right? I mean, information was much more controlled then, and
compared to what, like the Gulf War, where you could watch it online almost, like.
Oh yeah, well exactly. I mean, that was really the first Gulf War was the first movie, or the first.
Right.
Well, a Freudian slip there. The first, real war that we could kind of watch on television as it was kind of happening, and it's interesting to kind of see like how that technology changes. I mean, you see it obviously in war games. You see, a lot of I don't know, Tau drones and stuff like that, and marker lights and whatever. Well, it's interesting. I just watched a video on YouTube, I don't know, about a month ago. I think it was from Vice.com, and they did this story about like what the American military, they had like this contest to see who could shoot down drones the fastest, like who could build a system that would do that, because that's going to be a big deal. You know what I mean? The anti-drone warfare, that's going to be a big deal. And it's interesting to see how that, when I'm watching this, I'm like, oh yeah, totally, I get that, because I've been playing war games for a long time and I understand how that's going to work. So that kind of stuff, it's interesting to see how not only just the information that we see almost instantly, you think how quickly we're seeing it, think how quickly they're seeing it over there, or whatever. Obviously they've got to be pretty much real time so that they know what to do next. So yeah,
it's just super bizarre. And that's the other thing too. I mean, with what you see in history, there's so much that you never know. It's an interesting role, I guess, Tom Hanks has kind of taken on, because like you watch Charlie Wilson's War or Bridge of Spies really recently, amazing movie, and it's about like the absurd political stuff you have to deal with.
Oh yeah.
That people just see the end result, but they don't know what led up to it.
Yep.
So I recommend Bridge of Spies if you haven't seen it, and if you're at all interested in the history of that. It was cool because I was talking to my dad, and he remembered that event, because it says it's inspired by a true story, but apparently it's fairly high fidelity to that.
Yeah.
So
it's recent history.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's living memory still in a lot of people.
Oh well, like, did you guys see Argo with Ben Affleck?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
That one was really interesting too.
Yeah.
It's so weird to see like a declassified story like that. I don't know. It's cool. And I guess that's also been a trend lately, a whole lot of like, this is a true story, or sequels to movies that were once popular.
I've been watching, speaking of this is a true story, even though it's technically not, I don't think. We've been watching Fargo on FX, the TV show.
Oh, yeah.
And it's amazing how they always put at the beginning about how this is, a true story and stuff, even though I'm pretty sure it's not, but they just say it is anyway because it's cooler that way to some degree.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know, that first season was so good, and the second season so far we've liked it. We've only seen 2 episodes. It's been pretty good. It's not been as kind of crazy as the first season was right off the bat, but it's been pretty good. And I mean, I loved Fargo, the original movie, and
That's
This
super.
is the series has been really good, and I'm glad that they're not just like, oh, we're just going to make it like the movie. They make it quite a bit different, even though it's in the same kind of area and it still deals with cops and robbers kind of stuff. The first season did actually have like one spot where it intersected with the movie, and that was really cool. But yeah,
Well,
I've been liking that a lot.
are the Coen brothers involved in the writing of that?
Not the writing, I don't believe. They're executive producers, which means that they said, yeah, why don't you go do that? That's.
Yeah.
They helped pay for it. That's usually like in independent film. If you're an executive producer, that means you usually gave money to the film so that it could actually happen.
Well, for example, we are all the executive producers of our content.
Of our what?
Really, of our content in a really low-level kind of way.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've worked on 2 different independent films, and both times, like people who don't, for lack of a better word, donated money. They basically got executive producer credits because that's kind of how it works. So yeah, that's kind of how it works, at least in independent film. Whereas I don't think it works quite the same like that in regular film. But
Pretty sure executive producer on major films is whoever wrote the biggest check, because there's lots of levels of producer.
oh yeah,
But executive producer is the money one.
generally, or else it's just we need to attach Steven Spielberg's name to this thing, and so he's executive producer. So like at some point, like someone ran the story by him. Someone ran the story by him, and he was like, "Yeah, that looks good. I think that's a good idea," or whatever. They had a meeting with him, and now he's executive producer.
Oh my gosh, that reminds me. Have you been watching? Because we're talking about how movies are getting made, and you attach a name and it makes a movie. Have you guys been watching the How It All Went Wrong series of movies on Netflix? Like Lost. What is the one? Well, Lost in La Mancha is one of them, but also the other one that talks about the island of Dr. Moreau and how that all went terribly, terribly awry. And they're really cool to see on Netflix because they talk about.
Someone in the comments mentioned the one about Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should look into those because those would be interesting. I'm interested in the process. So.
Well, they're on Netflix, so it's not so crazy to get a hold of. Let me see who said it. Richard Stanley film. Yeah. Twisted Bishop had mentioned it. He was also asking us to pose the quote-unquote friendship-destroying question, alien or aliens? Aliens.
Aliens. I mean, really, Alien and Aliens are 2 different films.
Oh, completely. Completely different.
Even 2 different genres, almost.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, Alien is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And Aliens is like a summer blockbuster kind of sci-fi action film.
Yeah, it's an action film.
Yeah.
Or they say it's a Vietnam movie in space.
Yeah.
Really? I haven't heard that description.
Yeah, a Vietnam movie in space. Yeah, because they're all like Vietnam soldiers, and they're all mouthy, and they're all these 2-dimensional characters, and
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I love it. I mean, people can shoot it to pieces, and I mean, like, I'll still love it because.
I don't know how much they do. I mean, think about how much they ever tell you in the Alien series until more recently.
Honestly, I like all of the Alien movies that I can think of. I mean, like, the first 2 are obviously the best. The third one...
The third one was the worst until 4 came out, and then everyone was like, it's fine.
I think that both of those get a lot of, like, negative, thoughts, but honestly, I'm not saying that they're great, but I do enjoy watching. We actually did just watch 3 recently.
Yeah.
And then I think we followed up. We were like, well, heck, we should watch 4. We haven't seen that one in a while because we had, I forget what channel it was. There was some Encore or something, I think, where when there's no commercials, they've been playing a bunch of stuff recently, and they had played Alien, the original one, and my wife, I don't think, had ever seen it all the way through. And then we talked quite a bit about how it's so much different than Aliens, which she had seen, and she had seen the 3rd one and the 4th one as well. And then we went back and kind of refreshed our memory, which, again, like I said, is a great thing to do with movies when you can watch them again and then go, oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot about that whole part,
Yeah. Did you know that that was David Fincher's first movie? Was Alien 3?
Yeah. There's a lot of things I guess he wanted to do that either got cut, or there's a director's cut that's huge.
He wasn't allowed to do very much.
Yeah.
Well, because it was a franchise, right? So.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, it was a franchise, and the movie I don't ever fully know I should say the series or the intellectual property of Aliens never quite knew what it was to begin with. It asked a lot of questions in the beginning. It's like, wow, look at this, these weird, H.R. Geiger monsters in here, and part of why it's so scary is because it leaves you with those questions, and these things come out of the dark at you. But I think it was still kind of figuring out what it really was after that. And that's why you have such drastic changes from movie to movie. I mean, the hereditary memory, that was not really a thing. They're just like, oh, sure, this. Like, genetic changes aren't really...
Just change stuff up. It'll be fine.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like it's not a well-treated as an idea, as a franchise. It's not a well-treated franchise.
Yeah, like a lot of the comic books delve into a lot of different areas. But yeah, the movies don't go into any kind of depth that the comic books have explored.
He's fighting a predator, and we don't know what's going on.
That's a lot of fun, though.
That's all canon, right?
I loved in the late '90s. There was a computer game called Alien versus Predator before the movie came out, and you could play as a colonial marine, an alien, or a predator in certain situations, and it was so great because it was like a first-person shooter type game, and like as the alien, you could crawl around on the ceiling and do stuff, and it was one of the first games of that type where you could like knock out the lights. You could just go up as an alien to a light and just punch it or hit it or whatever, and it would go out. And so you would knock out the lights, and like when you were playing, like the Colonial Marines, it was spooky to be a Colonial Marine because it got dark and you couldn't, you had that stupid that blip.
Oh yeah, the
thing, and but you could throw these flares, but they would only last for about a minute or maybe 30 seconds, and you only got so many of them, and it had such great such great atmosphere that honestly the Alien versus Predator movie never had anything even quite close. It wasn't terrible, and they made a second one, I think, which I don't think I ever actually saw, but. Yeah, I liked the comic book that they did originally, and I loved the game, and then the movie just sort of kind of didn't work.
They did something similar for, I think it was Aliens 3, or Alien 3 for the Sega Genesis. That game was actually really spooky.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
It was fun.
Playing video games the days of the Sega Genesis.
Yeah, no, Alien 3 on the Genesis was a lot of fun. It was a little side-scroller, and you're just running around. Yeah. Oh no, that was fun.
I don't think I ever saw that. Yeah.
I bet it's taken a lot from what you're describing. So,
what's that?
I said it's taking a lot from, or took a lot from the game you're describing. My guess.
It's possible. I mean, like the Aliens versus Predator game, that one was like a first-person shooter, so it wasn't like a side-scroller and stuff, but it was.
But you're describing like it being in the dark, and you have the.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, yeah. That part was I'm sure.
Just similar elements, but you're right. I mean, it's not a first person.
Yeah. But there's
a first-person shooter aliens. I'd be terrified.
Yeah, no, it was scary. It was honestly, I had a friend who the noise of the motion detector thing, or the that blip blip blip, like it would make him literally like. It would give him an upset stomach. Like he couldn't play it for too long because he would start to just like that sound, which is just messing with him, So he wouldn't play with us for as long as some of the other guys would.
That's awesome. I think I only saw AVP 2. Actually, I didn't even see the first one because the person who was taking me to see it didn't want to show me the first one because he thought I wouldn't go see the second with him. I saw the first one. That was also how I was introduced to the Dungeons and Dragons movies.
Oh man. Man, that first one, I have had better film on my teeth, like in the morning after a lot of drinking. That was just terrible. That was so bad. That is possibly one of the worst movies that I can think of seeing, honestly, is that first Dungeons and Dragons movie, especially because, like, that was my first gaming experience of pretty much any kind, like 5th grade playing D&D. And when they made this film, I was just, it stunk so bad. Ugh.
It's so heartbreaking when
I know
when it sort of ruins
exactly, yeah,
a field or a franchise you love, and you realize terrifyingly that that's somebody else's introduction to what that world is, and you're like, no, I promise it's not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was also weird how many people they got into it. But I don't know. Dungeons and Dragons wasn't an Uwe Boll movie, was it?
No, it wasn't a Uwe Boll movie. No.
It was just bad on its own right.
It was just bad on its own right. Oh yeah, well they had what was the bad guy's name? Yeah, Jeremy Irons was in it. Exactly. Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
He must have needed a new pool or something, or another room on his house.
Because of the big truck of money and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's his name? Ben Kingsley was in not a D&D movie, but he was in I think he was in a Uwe Boll movie. I forget which one.
Right. Ben Kingsley does whatever he wants.
Blood Rain, maybe? He might have been in Blood Rain.
Ooh, I haven't seen that one.
Neither have I. I just remember seeing the box. That's the one thing I kind of miss sometimes about going to the video store and like picking up the boxes and looking at them. The covers have to be very differently designed these days for Netflix. Because they have to be able to catch you as you're basically kind of scrolling by, and things have to be bolder, and you can't have as much stuff on the box. That's kind of like an actual thing. Like one of the
thumbnails.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just because people just don't see it when they're scrolling around in Netflix. One of the independent films that that I did, it got into distribution, and they changed the cover because they wanted to get it in to online streaming stuff like that, and they were like, oh, this cover won't work on online streaming, it's got to look like this. And it never did get onto Netflix, but it did get onto Hulu, so I guess it got onto Hulu for I think it's still there too.
Sorry, Rael, regarding your comment about me coming to Canada, that was me just referencing Snatch again to Mandragora. So that was a joke. I'm not going to Canada very soon, especially during winter, because I hate winter in the warm desert, let alone the freezing tundra. So.
I'm coming to London.
We've got London. It's not far from here. It's about 2 hours.
All right, yeah.
I would come to see you, Kris.
Yeah. In the winter. The dead of winter.
Not a chance.
In this area, come on. Okay, Ontario, the lowest point of Ontario is at the same parallel as the most northern point of California.
That sounds horrible.
Well, you're not super far away from Buffalo, right?
Yeah, Buffalo is half-hour drive.
Right, but last year Buffalo got like 25 feet of snow dumped on it, like in an afternoon or something like that.
They were buried alive.
Yeah.
Alive. They were like it was like the day after tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It was scary. Like we thought it was the winter apocalypse coming for us all. And we're all gonna get buried under ice.
Wow.
But surprisingly though, in our area here in Welland, like in the Niagara area, like we got like maybe 6 inches. Yeah. Maybe. That's it. And they got it all. Yeah.
Something to do with the way the lake is and this and that and whatnot, or
because we're situated between two of the Great Lakes, right? So there's like this whole jet current thing and blah blah blah. And
was that the same time frame that there was that giant ice sheet that was like scooting over a pond and like into buildings because it was just this massive island of ice moving? I thought that was in that part of the country. I don't know. I don't ever want to live in the Northeast. I was born there, and I don't like it.
It sounds like something that would happen. I mean, I'm in Wisconsin, and when the lake ice finally breaks up, it does this thing called an ice shove, where it just starts to come inland, and then you get these crazy, like, Fortress of Solitude size, like giant, like, mountains of ice on the shore, and then you go take pictures because they're cool and stuff, but eventually they kind of melt. So.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's awesome.
Speaking of horror movies and the fact that it's nearly Halloween, do we have any favorite horror movies?
Horror? Go, Miranda, go.
Does The Nightmare Before Christmas count?
I'm not sure if it does. I don't know.
Halloween. Trick or Treat's really good.
Yes. Trick or Treat is super good. Have you seen that, Kris?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. As far as just like not too horrible, but very Halloween oriented. It's great to watch around that time.
Kind of like a Halloween romp almost.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah.
I watched an annoying one last night. It just came out. It just came out for rental. Crap, I can't remember what the hell it's called now. It's one of those lost footage movies.
For
One of the
Halloween?
Paranormal Activities?
No, it's like Paranormal Activity. You know, it's the lost footage crap. It's a bunch of high school kids, and it's a gym. It's Hangman.
Is it
Huh?
Chronicle?
No, Gallows something.
Gallows. That's
Yeah,
it.
The Gallows?
The Gallows.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I just watched that one last night, and that one took forever to get into the damn ghost story of it all.
Yeah. No, that's always a bummer.
And it's the entire thing is that lost footage type stuff.
Yeah.
Entire thing, right? And like Blair Witch, right? It's just like ever since Blair Witch, all these movies like paranormal and stuff like that, they've all come out and they all do the same kind of vibe, and no,
I think with the Paranormal Activity movies, they can pull that off because it's part of the story, just like it was in Blair Witch, and it kind of makes a bit more sense. Like I remember coming out of the theater at Blair Witch, we went to a midnight show, and my legs hurt. I mean, I was tense. You know what I mean? I was so tense during that movie.
Yeah.
And
I pooped a little.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it was not good. But honestly, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes that found footage, I think you can go too far with it, and it just doesn't work out.
No.
Well,
Did either of you see It Follows?
Yeah.
No.
Man, I was kind of annoyed. The main character, you want her to die. You're just sick of her. You're like, why can't we follow literally anyone else?
It's such an interesting movie in that it like
and spooky things are very spooky. Like there's a lot of wrong, just things that are wrong, and that's really effective.
See, that's the thing. I was watching that film, and I just kept thinking to myself, man, like the guys that I kind of work with on and off and doing films and stuff, I'm like, man, I wish we would have made this movie because it wouldn't have been that hard. You know what I mean? There's so much there's like so much that's not even special effects. They're just like, get an old person, put them in a robe, and have them follow this lady around, and that's not hard to do. You can do that. There's some at the end, obviously there's some definite special effects and stuff like that, but it was it was also, could you tell what year it was?
Not so much. It is kind of weird how it doesn't fit into a particular decade, past late 90s, I guess.
Like everybody's got like a tube TV, and all the cars are older, and some people are wearing acid wash, but that one girl had like an e-reader.
Yeah, on her little compact.
Yeah. I thought it was a makeup compact, but it was actually like a little 2-screen like digital e-reader, and she was reading books on it and stuff like that. And they referenced it like 2-3 times in the film, and nobody had a cell phone, but she had an e-reader. It was just really weird, And I kind of like that sort of stuff sometimes when it's just sort of odd, and you're like, I think it helps to unsettle you if it's a horror movie. If you're trying to make a romantic comedy, well, that's not going to work out. But I mean, for something like that.
It Follows did a lot of things right. The scary parts were genuinely scary, and they don't have to explain everything, which is kind of one of the keys to horror.
Yeah.
The type of story this was. Did you guys ever read? Do you remember Alvin Schwartz, the guy who did like scary stories to tell in the dark?
That name sounds familiar.
He made some really great stories. I'm gonna say like the 90s. I don't know. I read it as a kid, and his stories were just kind of weird like that, where it would be something seemingly normal following you, but it's really like a very scary thing because it keeps oppressively following you. Like no matter where you go, it's catching up, and sometimes you have time, and they're really vague about how far away you could get from.
Well, it's the same kind of thing with zombie movies, you know what I mean? They're just constantly kind of coming after you,
Kind of, but one of the things about zombie movies is it's usually about how people handle
right. The zombies are usually not the main characters, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. They're also the most human-like monster you can get, and that you can just wantonly kill.
Right, yeah, that's true.
There are aspects of it. But yeah, no, It Follows did a lot of things right. I found the main character so unbearable, like it kind of ruined it.
The music was crazy too. Like
it was good.
It was jarring very frequently, which I think also helped to kind of make things very strange about the movie. But it reminded me of the music from Blade Runner. So like you basically, it's like they got some guys and they're like, okay, go watch Blade Runner, and then tomorrow I want you guys to like just go on a bender, and then the day after that, get up, Red Bull, and then we need a soundtrack, and that's what we. And that's like it was because you'd be like watching the movie, and all of a sudden it was like crazy, like Vangelis kind of like blah. It would get in your face a couple of times in the movie. I'm just like, could you dial it back just a touch? That'd be great.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. It really did. It was it helped to kind of keep you off balance, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Another good one, it's not new, but as a ghost story, The Others I thought was really good.
Nicole Kidman?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I didn't see that one either.
It's somber. It's interesting.
Yeah, somber is a good word for it. That's true. It's not real jump outy too much.
No.
Okay, scariest non-horror movie.
Juno. Team Predator. No. I don't know. I haven't even watched it. I actually don't think I could. What is? Let me see here. Well, that's a non-horror. Okay.
Scariest non-horror movie.
And it's not like cringe type of bad.
I'm thinking along the lines of like something like 7.
Yeah, 7. 8mm.
Yeah.
8mm. Yeah, that's
that one's difficult. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs. That's a joyful one. What are you talking about?
Yeah, everything works out great in that movie.
Yeah.
Happy endings for everyone.
The happy endings for everyone.
Not for Dr. Chilton.
I guess. Huh?
I said there's no happy ending for Dr. Chilton in that movie, but everybody else seems to have a pretty good time.
There you go. I'm trying to think of what else. That's a non-horror. I mean, honestly, it's not necessarily as scary, but if you do watch, like, The Talented Mr. Ripley, again, it is a very interesting tale of watching somebody become a villain.
Yeah.
I would say that's a thriller.
Yeah, I think it is classified as a thriller. But he said horror, so it counts.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of a scary movie other than the ones you've mentioned to some degree. That's not.
Yeah, I forgot about 8mm. You have to go up there.
Yeah.
It is genuinely scary because you can imagine kind of being in that world.
Because I mean, like, horror movies, I mean, aren't scary to me because it's monsters, it's makeup, it's this, it's ghosts. You know what I mean? All these things that are just outside the normal experience. But a movie like 7, that crazy nut job is out there.
Oh yeah.
And he, you know what I mean? He's shaving his fingertips off so he leaves no fingerprints. He's writing in his journal every day. He's plotting and and that guy's out there.
Mm-hmm.
And same with 8mm. They're out there.
Yeah. No, that one's really good. Oh man.
Those are the movies those are the movies that scare me. It's like Fatal Attraction.
I haven't seen that.
That's the scariest movie to any man on this planet.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's scary.
What about Species? Isn't that one scary?
No, because it's a chick made up in a suit and a thing. She's got the tentacle. No, it's.
Wait, which movie?
Species.
Natasha Henstridge.
Oh, Species. Oh, yeah.
No, that's
I thought she
made up.
killed guys too.
Yeah, there was a movie that what's her name? Scarlett Johansson was in called Under the Skin or Skin Deep or
It wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, and that one, like, I don't know if she was in. I didn't see it, but I've had a friend explain it to me, and it sounded a little Species-esque, but not exactly. It's supposed to be pretty good, though. I think.
Not familiar with that one.
The one I watched of hers that was fairly recent was Lucy, and that one wasn't bad. A lot of people pooed on that one.
Kidding? I was done with Luc Besson after Lucy. What was this?
Really?
Well, aren't you a big fan of Fifth Element?
I love Fifth Element. Apparently, and I love Leon or The Professional. Only 2 good movies that guy's done because everything, like Brick Mansions. What is this?
Yeah, I never saw that.
It's garbage because the motivations of the characters. It's just I'm trying to calm down here.
Into the nose, out to the mouth.
Very short-sighted. Lucy, the girl's a sociopath, apparently, and no, you don't have to explain where everything comes from, but you have no idea what world she lives in that movie. She can do anything for no reason. and it just keeps growing and growing until she turns into a USB drive or whatever. And
No, see, it's because she used more than 10% of her brain. That's
Yeah.
they mentioned that like so many times in the movie, and I'm like, that's not even a thing. I know everyone thinks it's a thing, but that's not a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that was supposed to be like you use 10% at a time or something. Like you use all of your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
But
the media thinks that you don't.
If you expand beyond that, suddenly you are manipulating time and space, like reversing back in time. Just physics no longer apply to you.
Well, no, because of the 10%. Now it's more now. She has more brain.
And then she's not a good person at all. Like she's trying to get to wherever. What is it? She's trying to keep the guys, I guess, from getting a hold of her. But she's like committing all kinds of murder whenever she's in that car.
That was their point,
guy.
though.
She's like, no, go this way. Oh, look, all these people died. I could have prevented that because I'm, a god, but I'm not going to because I don't actually care.
That's what happens when you get smart. That's what happens when you get smart.
Yeah. He was a god.
If he gets too smart, you become a sociopath. Evidently, that's I think it was actually a documentary, frankly.
I hate you so much right now.
It was a stupid movie, but we watched it. I don't know why. We were just like, yeah, let's go see it in the theater. Why not? And we don't do that much these days because I don't generally like having people eat popcorn like right by my head, and which happens almost every time I'm in the theater. I could be the only person in there, and someone's going to sit directly behind me and just start going through like 3 buckets of popcorn. But yeah, but we went to see it, and I was like, I got out of it. I'm like, I've seen worse movies, I saw Ultraviolet with Mia Jovovich.
I didn't see that one.
That one was Crazy Town. That one didn't.
Yeah.
Like she was driving her.
Very similar, actually.
Because she was driving her motorcycle on the side of a building, and
That's believable.
It was. If you want to talk about a movie being an anime, that movie was an anime. Or honestly, that was because a lot of it didn't make any sense, and crazy crap happened all the time. So.
Well, what was that other one with Theron?
Theron?
Yeah, and it was an anime one based off anime.
Which one?
Eon Flux.
Is it Aeon Flux?
Oh, Charlize Theron. Yeah, that was Aeon Flux.
Yeah.
And I liked that because I don't know if that was an anime per se. It was.
I thought it was. I thought it was based off an anime.
Well, it was a comic or a cartoon that used to be on MTV. There was a show on MTV called Liquid Television, and it was all animated. And at the end of nearly every episode, they had like a 5-minute clip, and it was just Aeon Flux. And then they took a bunch of that and they put it all together. And then they threw it away, and then they made this movie, which had nothing to do really much with the
fire.
That was and they kicked it into the sea, and then they made this movie, which was still sort of enjoyable and sort of fun, but it had nothing to do again with the property, kind of like World War Z.
Right.
World War Z,
and I say that having not read the book.
It's not a bad movie, but it's not the book.
Yeah.
And I would love to see an actual adaptation of the book. It would be difficult, but I'd love to see it. But they could have named that movie literally anything else, and then it would still have been just fine. But because I've listened to the book now a couple of times, I read it originally, and then I've listened to it while painting because there's a great audiobook version with all these different actors doing all the different parts and stuff, and it's super good. If you get the chance, you should definitely go check it out on like Audible or something like that. It's so good. Because it's just all these, basically it's this one character and he goes around after the apocalypse and everything's gotten, not back to normal, but things are stabilized, and he goes around as a journalist and talks to all these people about their experiences during what was known as World War Z.
Yeah, because it's multiple.
And the movie doesn't have anything to do with that, but I don't know, the movie was still okay. The way they just kind of run willy-nilly and just, like a flock of geese is a little strange sometimes, but I'm not that big of a. There are people who are like absolutely like, no, zombies only move slowly, they never run, and anything. And I'm not that much of a purist, as it turns out. So.
Well, the only real zombie was in Serpent in the Rainbow.
Yes, if we're going to start talking about real zombies, then I guess that's true.
Man, that's an old movie.
Yeah, from the 80s, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That was one of my first impressions of Bill Pullman. And
that's Bill. Yeah.
Oh God, I forgot. Yeah, that's right. Isn't he the only? I think he's the only person to be killed by an alien, a predator, and the Terminator.
That's an awesome thing to have on your resume.
I just saw that recently somewhere, and I'm like, hey, that's right. He was in Terminator. Like in the first movie, I think he was one of the guys that.
Oh, Bill Paxton.
Oh, I'm thinking of Bill Paxton. Not
Pullman.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, different guy. Benicio
Yeah,
del Toro, Guillermo del Toro, Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton.
I love Bill Paxton.
Basically the same.
Entertaining. You know what? Especially after they're like, well, obviously aliens, but like he's in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. first season of that, and you're like, yeah.
And he was also killed by the Terminator in the first Terminator movie, I believe, and he was killed by the Predator in Predator 2.
Yeah.
So, he's got that for his resume, which is nice.
So how far along are you guys? Because I've been making sporadic progress.
I haven't done the crap really.
I'm dry brushing skeletons, which are fun.
I got stuff attached to corks for spraying and airbrushing, and yeah.
I have paint on my hands because I'm too cool to use corks. Ah, come on, focus.
I know, mine never wants to focus either.
Yeah, sorry, there's a blurry mess. I'll put it on my Facebook later.
I always stick things onto pill bottles with a little bit of poster putty, and that works generally pretty well. And I have a lot of pill bottles.
Very soon I will most likely be offering these for people to purchase.
Oh, those are cool.
And these are, you obviously stick your tack onto it, but these are big enough to hold everything from like 40K War Machine up to the medium bases, and then you can turn it around and fit the larger bases. Anything just not like Dreadnought sized.
Yeah.
But I got it all gripped out. It's nice and light. It's about I don't know. It's about almost the size of like a hockey puck almost.
Yeah, a little smaller.
A little bit smaller than a hockey puck. Yeah, I mean, but it's very comfortable because one of the things. I'll tell you right now, one of the main things that, like, especially for like you, Miranda, where you're not using something, the model attached to something, it's actually bad because your fingers, your oils and stuff, and your hands.
You mean we're this business here?
Yeah, you got like on the model itself. Well, as you're working on it and you're handling it, you can rub that paint off, right?
Well, I always hold it like this. But...
Right, but even with your fingertips, like the base rim is like there, right? And so there's still all this finger here. And so sometimes that can still touch the model, but but oftentimes a lot of people when they're holding the base, especially like 40K bases, they're really really small. Yeah. Well, at least the older ones anyway.
Right.
Cramp up in the hands.
Yeah, I find because I've got big meat paws, I need something big to hold on to because if I just hold on to the base, I just drop them all the time. I'm like, holding it, but if I've got something big to hold on to, it works out great. When I did my Hadros Fishman, I wanted to paint them separately from the bases, which I almost never do. I almost always put a base on and then texture and then prime and go from there.
Right.
I bought resin bases from Secret Weapon Miniatures, and I wanted to put them on separately, so I was going to paint them separately. So I'm like, well, I need corks. And I drink wine, but I don't drink that much wine. So I went onto eBay, and I found somebody selling champagne corks. This is 50 champagne corks shipped for like $8, and they worked awesome. And so... but when I would show off pictures and stuff on my channel, people would be like, wow, you really like Prosecco. And I'm like, no, seriously, I didn't drink any of this. This was probably a restaurant that was holding on to them. And the guy
I swear to God, I didn't drink any of it.
I don't even know what Prosecco is, honestly. But, so those... Rather than saving up corks, you just go onto eBay and look, and there'll be people selling corks. People use them, I guess, for, like, crafts, like stuff that they saw on Pinterest or whatever, and they make... something out of them, but I'm using them for little bases for fishmen while I paint them, and they work out nice when I'm not able to use these.
Yeah, my mom will just have to deal with it. I do paint as a means to an end, and I'm not so shameful about pawning it off. So it's fine. Can I play now?
I think I'm a better painter than I am a gamer. I mean, I'm not a tournament player by any stretch of the imagination. And I know Miranda, you're very serious about tournament playing. I've watched you play at Adepticon a couple years ago. Back when Joey was here from the UK.
2012.
2012. That was the first time I met you, and I walked through the Privateer press room, and you were very serious business as you were playing the game, and so I'm more of a
to the L bracket.
yeah. I'm more of a I'm generally a little bit more of a painter, and I like to play to have fun. But I think I'm a better painter than I am a gamer. I usually lose. So.
Have you played much Wrath of Kings, or are you mostly just painting the models?
I'm going to be playing it as soon as I get the rest of them done, but I also have a tendency, like a lot of gamers, to have that sort of gamer ADD where you just sort of hop around. Like I did, I just finished a warband of Dark Age models, so that's another Cool Mini or Not game, and so I got 8 models finished, even static grass and the whole deal, and so I felt pretty good about that. And then I'm going to probably start, after I get these skeletons done, I may start heading back to finish the rest of my fishmen.
Fair enough. I'm just still trying to find more people to play this game. So.
Yeah, I know a couple of guys who've got I know 2 different guys who've got, one's got a Garitzi starter, and the other one's got the Shalehan, or who's the other guys that were also kind of
Nestier,
Asian?
probably.
Which one?
Nestier. They were the ones with the masks.
Yeah, the ones.
Red
Yep.
and green motif.
Yep, the ones with the masks. And so I know those 2 guys locally, and we can probably start playing eventually. I'm looking forward to that. But I also now know some guys locally who play Dark Age. So actually, the guy who won the tournament at Gen Con this year lives about 25 miles away from me. So he and I have a game on Halloween, actually, at the local shop. So I'm looking forward to that.
But will you be in costume, Adam? Really?
No, I am not a costume kind of guy generally. I've got friends who are big into costumes and love that kind of stuff, and I'm never that guy. I'm always if I have to come up with a costume, it's crap I found around the house, and it never works out. It really doesn't.
Fair enough. Fine.
Do you have a costume closet?
I do. I don't throw anything away.
You have because I've got a friend who's got a costume closet. They have a closet in their house that's just where all the costumes go. And
Mine's more like a haphazard portion of.
No, that's fine then. Yeah. Then you're not you don't have an actual dedicated closet for that kind of stuff.
No, alas, not yet.
That's probably for the best.
Probably a good thing to build on too.
Well, eventually, you can always. There's always next year.
Hey, are you guys much into the comedies?
Love comedies.
Yeah.
Have you seen Spy?
Yes. Yeah. I actually saw it in the theater, strangely.
That movie made
Why would
me.
that be strange?
Because I don't usually go to the theater. That's why. But with my mom actually. So yeah, that's why. Yeah. Because otherwise I just wait till stuff comes out on Blu-ray or whatever. But yeah, that I saw in the theater, and that was funny. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
I'm one thing about Melissa McCarthy. I don't know why they always feel it necessary to dress her weirdly and make her look really weird. Because they make her look ugly in movies. When you see her on TV and she's not ugly. Yeah. And in movies, they always have a tendency to make her look just oafish and
Well, they're playing up the comedy stereotype, I guess. But in Spy, she's dressed up. She's for that.
And in Spy, she looks normal, and which is fairly refreshing. I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as movies that contain her.
Honestly, they make a joke of it in that, when she's in disguise, most of the time she's dressed in a sweatshirt with a kitty on it, and she's got crazy weird hair and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's very similar in that.
But then eventually she shows up and she looks great because she's all dressed up because she's well, this is the way we're going to do it now, and I liked that movie quite a bit. I was impressed. Yeah.
That one and the other one with Sandra Bullock, they were pretty funny.
I haven't seen that one.
Heat. Yeah, I didn't see that one either.
No?
No.
Really funny one with Susan Sarandon called Tammy, though.
Yeah, I saw that one. That one wasn't bad.
Sarandon's hilarious.
But in her and Bullock actually are really, really funny. Heat is a pretty good one because she plays the bad cop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember seeing that from the trailers. Yeah.
It's a lot of crude humor, of course, but it's really, really funny.
Didn't like her in Identity Theft. I didn't really care for that one. But
I didn't see.
Jason Bateman. I mean, he's such a good straight man. I mean, it's you need somebody, I think, a little bit wackier to play off. And I mean, like there were some parts in that I was practically peeing my pants, like when they meet up with the cowboy in the bar and they're in the hotel room and he's stuck in there, and
Yeah.
so.
Did you guys see? Speaking of Jason Bateman being kind of a straight man, did you guys see Paul? With
by Simon Pegg.
It's Simon Pegg and Nick Frost and the alien who's played by Seth Rogen.
Yeah, that was actually, I think, shot out here in New Mexico.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit, but one of the parts about it is that because Jason Bateman plays like basically a badass throughout the entire movie, and it's a very different kind of, because he's like a special agent or whatever and everything.
Yeah,
he's taking them around.
Paul.
Yeah, and it's so good. I mean, besides the fact that I love Pegg and Frost and all that stuff, but yeah, he was really good in it. There was a lot of good stuff in that movie. I enjoyed it. That's one we owned too.
It was funny, and
I didn't care for Paul. I thought the humor was. It's kind of like that super jerkwad atheist type of humor where it's like, obviously we know it's better and you are stupid for thinking the way you do.
Sure.
It comes off just as annoying as the opposite when someone's like super fundamentalist about something and they're thinking you're stupid. And it's just really annoying because you're like, there's nothing.
It's Seth Rogen.
Thoughts about this. You're just being a jerk. And Paul, I don't know. Like I didn't think it was very clever. I guess the humor was not particularly clever. It had some moments. I think Jason Bateman's probably one of the better parts of it.
I think him and like the as usual the relationship between Simon Pegg's character and Nick Frost's character. I mean, that's always whenever they work together. I always like that stuff. They
got a good friendship thing. But I mean, at the same time, Paul was being made. Dude, Scott Pilgrim was getting made, and that movie is amazing.
Yeah, I'm a big. Oh my goodness, you should see that. That's a really, because I'll be honest. When the comic book first came out, everyone was raving about it, and I went and looked at it, and I'm like, I should pick it up. And I don't read a lot of comics, and I did not like the art style, partially because I couldn't tell who was who because everybody kind of looked the same.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that was a big problem, so I just skipped it. But when the movie came out, I'm like, all right, I'm a big fan of the director. I like Edgar Wright stuff, and I like seeing it was just like everything looked good. And then I went and saw it, and I was like, wow, yeah, that's one of my favorites too. That's another one that I own.
Yeah, that's probably in the top area somewhere. It's got a lot of, I don't know, it's very deep, and it's cool because Edgar Wright's friends with the guy who did the comics, and so
Canadian, I think. I can't think of his name. Something Lee, isn't it? I can't think of the the writer's name, comic book guy.
I know. But yeah, so that one's definitely a good one too. If you haven't seen it. I mean, it's along those geek movies, but it's so sweet. Brian Lee O'Malley.
I knew the word Lee was in there. Brian Lee O'Malley, yes. Yeah,
so I mean, those guys knew each other. So I know my brother, he was like, no, I don't like the movies because it's not like the comics. And I'm like, I think this gets a pass. They talk to each other. Edgar Wright helped, O'Malley finish the comics. It's fine. But then I didn't really have a problem with Speed Racer either.
I never watched Speed Racer either. I was just kind of scared out of that one. I just never bothered watching it.
I read someplace that it was poorly marketed. Like it was marketed as one thing, but it was actually kind of something else, and that was John Carter. That movie was also poorly marketed.
John Carter. I enjoyed.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's just that why they didn't call it John Carter of Mars, if they would have maybe even just put that in the title, people would have been like a little bit like, oh, okay, cool. But just calling it John Carter, no one knows who that is. Well, most people don't know who that is. And so, yeah.
Unless you're reading those Edgar Rice Burroughs.
Exactly, yeah. So it's interesting, and they spent a ton of money on it, and it just didn't.
And that's the bigger problem. Is just it was way beyond the budget of the audience, which I think is part of why Scott Pilgrim suffered so much too, because it's really well done, but there isn't enough of the audience to support those movies as much as they need to be.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching John Carter and thinking, if this movie came out in the 80s, it would probably be as beloved as like Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It is just, it has that feel to it, but it's timing.
I read an article about how the guy who directed it, I believe, he'd been wanting to do it forever, and he was a big fan, and he'd been working for Pixar for a long time and had made them like $1 billion or something, you know, over his tenure there. And so so Disney was just like, here you go, here's a blank check, go make yourself a movie. And he's like, cool. And then he made a good movie, but then they didn't know how to market it properly. I guess there was a Super Bowl commercial, but he didn't have the trailer quite ready to go yet, so they had to use a bunch of parts, and people watched the trailer and went, I don't know what the hell this movie's about, you know? And so that didn't help, and it was this whole article in maybe Rolling Stone, I'm not 100% sure, someplace I read it, talking about how it was a good movie, but like the studio did as much as possible, almost, it seems, to screw it up. Probably not on purpose, because they probably took a bath on it, but...
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
It was way beyond budget. His name is Andrew Stanton, and he will be directing Finding Dory.
Oh, that's the one with the fish.
Mm-hmm, the next Finding Nemo movie.
Gotcha.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Well, he's still working for Pixar. They didn't get rid of him, so that's good. Or is that Pixar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one is. I'm also a big fan of, what's his name? Brian Bird. As a director.
Incredibles. Yeah, The Incredibles.
The Incredibles.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it got mixed reviews, but I was quite a fan of Tomorrowland.
I did not see that. I've got a friend who that was completely right up his alley, and he was like, he liked it, but he knew why it wasn't going to make a ton of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there's problems with it, but it is a almost refreshing style of movie. Mostly for lacking the nihilism that you see it so much in so many movies right now. But
yeah,
it's interesting. Hugh Laurie gives an amazing speech that I was just like applauding in the theater. Not really, because I don't want to yell at. But anyway, so that one was also a pretty good one. And then I'm assuming you guys are booked for Star Wars this year. I had to buy my tickets in advance.
I have not bought my tickets in advance because I heard that they were all sold out. So no one gets to see Star Wars anymore. If you didn't get in, you didn't get in, and they're obviously not gonna play it the next weekend. I mean, it'll be done.
And I don't go opening nights because I don't want to deal with all the kids.
But you get to see everybody in costume. Are you kidding? Opening nights are the best.
No, it's like a daycare. Every time I've been around these things and all these little kids running around the place, I can't stand it.
I went and saw Avengers on opening night almost by accident. Like some friends of ours wanted to go, and I'm like, well, there won't be any tickets, but I'll go look. And then I'm like, oh crap, I got tickets. All right. And then we went, and then and yeah, that was kind of annoying because again, it was a full theater, so I'm like, this in between people, and there's just a lot of I would prefer to see movies in a little bit more of a where I can.
And of course, you got lightsabers in the front of this.
Oh yeah,
going off. And,
I can't focus. Like I talk to people all the time who are like, oh, well, I was painting last night and I was watching Netflix, and I can't do that. Like I can listen to stuff while I'm painting, and I love to listen to audiobooks. But if I'm watching a movie or I'm watching TV or I'm watching it, you know what I mean? I'm not like, oh, it's on in the background. I'm paying attention all the time. I can't seem to split my visual focus that way. Audio, yes, but I can't. So that's why I listen to audiobooks and I don't watch Netflix when I'm painting. So.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just stop what I'm doing and watching.
Right, and then my brush is dry, and then I'm like, oh crap, so.
Yeah. I typically, I guess, for opening, I'll see the midnight release, so I don't typically run into the kids as much. I remember seeing, I guess it was the last of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, not the Hobbit one, but the Lord of the Rings part. Mm-hmm. And the midnight showing for that was cool because everybody was in costume and not so many kids. So I don't know, it's fine. And in Albuquerque, it's a little bit of a different audience anyway. Things don't get sold out so quickly. You actually have a chance of seeing things opening night without it being so packed.
Yeah. And you're in a fairly populous area, are you not?
It's under 1 million here. So, but
that's over the entire area here. Canada is only 35 million people. I mean, like, you cover that in a couple of states. But anyway, up north, like for Lord of the Rings, and when I went to saw Phantom Menace and stuff like that back in the day, and opening nights, and yeah, no. I mean, you don't get much of it because there's not that many people, of course, but every hardcore geek comes out, and I mean, no. It's more like punch, stab, kick face, and push people out of the line. And...
See, it's a problem being I'll admit it. I'm an old guy, so I'm just not interested in I want to watch the movie, and I wish everybody else would just shush, and that would that's kind of where I'm at.
Keep it down, you damn kids!
Yeah, get off my lawn!
Get off my lawn, you little whippersnappers!
Wow.
That's why I watch movies at home predominantly, because then I can.
Yeah. Same here. That's why I spend a lot on my home theater system. And I was so quick to kick my kids out to college and stuff like that. So they're gone.
Did you guys see Jurassic Park? The new
Yep.
Jurassic World, I should say.
No, actually, we were thinking about it because it just came up for rent. We've got an Apple TV, which is like a Roku but made by Apple or whatever, and so we were thinking about renting that, but we haven't yet. We got a wedding to go to this weekend, so we probably won't. Maybe next week.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
it's nothing groundbreaking, but it's if you loved the original, and you loved what some of the other ones, not three, but what the other two did. This one gives you a little bit more of that.
I think I saw 2. I don't think I ever saw 3.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
I don't know if I need to remember, because I thought 3 was trying to get back more to what the first one was like, because, well, Jurassic Park 2 is entertaining. It was more of just a monster movie instead of like a dinosaur movie. And they still kind of do that. They do that with Jurassic World, but it's still interesting how big a movie it ended up being. It seems like people were ready to like Jurassic Park again.
Yeah.
And this was good enough to do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, and plus too, everybody's in love with what's his name there?
Oh, Chris Pratt.
Yeah. Everybody loves him. So.
Yeah, he's Star-Lord, man. Of course.
Yeah. And I was watching the special features, and they cast him before he got Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
They cast him before he even was cast for Guardians.
Well,
I saw a clip because he was on that show Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And there was a gag reel from, I don't know what season it was, but he was like, they were like screwing around in between scenes or whatever, and he just like picked up a phone and he was like, "Hello, Mr. Spielberg. Why, yes, I'd love to be in the sequel to Jurassic Park."
Yeah.
And that was like 5 years before he even, was anywhere near that. So I think he called it, is what happened.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Turns out he actually has the power of telepathy
Oh, yeah.
and premonition.
Prescience? It's something that the Eldar have that I can never, like when you're playing
Prescience?
Eldar. Yes, that one. And it's always like you have the token that has it on there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do
Pre-science?
Pre-science? Okay, good. Yeah, that's fine.
Science before the science.
Good old pre-science.
It's like one of my favorite movies is As Good as It Gets. And one of my favorite scenes is when Helen Hunt is trying to figure out how to spell conscience. And is this right, conscience? That's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorite movies.
Wow.
That's not my top 5, but it's up there.
Yeah.
I find it's important to not, I have my top 5 and my then the next 5, but they're not in any order. And I can't, I can't get down to that where I'm like, oh, well, this is the order. I just can't. I've got I've got my 5, which I mentioned before, and then the next, let's see here. What was the next 5 that I've got on my list?
Crap, you wrote them down?
Oh, yeah, they're saved in my phone, so I don't forget. Then there's the Star Wars trilogy is in the next 5. Shawshank Redemption, that's, the Alien series.
Yeah, you're taking a whole series. You can't.
Yeah, no, I can totally cheat like that because it's right here on the phone. I can totally do that. And then Payback.
Oh, Payback. That's another good one.
Yeah, Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed that there are 2 versions of that movie?
Get the Gringo.
No. It's the same movie, but there's two versions, and they show different ones sometimes on TV, and
Oh,
one of them has a much warmer grade to everything.
Oh, really?
The other one has got a much bluer grade to everything. And I don't know if there are other changes as well, but there have been times when I've been watching it, I'm like, I don't remember this movie being so brown. I thought it was more blue. And there are other times you see it. And someone told me recently that, yeah, that was a thing. That was like a conscious thing, and there are kind of two versions. And I don't know if they've changed them a bit, but it's kind of like Blade Runner. There's the theatrical cut, which is terrible and has the voiceover, and then there's the final cut, which is awesome and doesn't have the voiceover. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. But yeah, like Payback, that whole thing with him and Lucy Liu's character and Kris Kristofferson and all that stuff. It's just that's a really good movie too. I like
excellent movie.
Yeah, totally was good. Although as far as multiple versions of the theatrical releases, Clue I think was the boss of that one.
Yeah. We've showed that one
earlier. Yeah, Twisted Bishop brought it up. Clue is one of my favorite movies ever as well. I just adore that movie, and I adore Madeline Kahn.
Yes. Flames on the side of my face. We showed Clue at the local community theater. We showed all the versions, all the different endings, like one after another at the end, because you have to. And so that was fun. But yeah, I like that movie too. I haven't seen it this year, I don't think, but we do see it from time to time pretty frequently. You don't see it on television that much. Like, you know how there are certain movies you see on television all the time?
Yeah.
Clue does not seem to be one of them. I'm assuming it's a licensing something or other distribution deal or whatever, but
probably. That's how It's a Wonderful Life gets aired every Thanksgiving.
Yeah. What's the Christmas Story? There's a channel, TNT or TBS shows the Christmas Story for 24 hours straight. They just repeat it over and over and over again.
Oh, good grief.
Like the last couple of years they've been doing that. So you can just catch it at like any point pretty much, which is fun.
Goodness, it sounds horrible. I liked Christmas Story just fine, but I guess I wouldn't watch it.
You wouldn't watch it like other times of the year.
No, that sounds like a prison sentence.
It's not a good July movie. You know what I mean? It's.
Or it sounds like one of those tortures they're doing to guys in Gitmo or something like that.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Where they got like their eyes wired open.
Clockwork Orange style.
Like in Clockwork Orange, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, random. I want to throw this out there. It was a smaller movie based on a book. Have you guys seen Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl?
Nope.
I have seen commercials for it, and I have seen where I can stream it online, but I haven't watched it.
It's actually amazing. It's one of the best movies I've seen all year.
Really?
And, I mean, there's been strong competition with, like, Mad Max.
Oh, yeah.
No, Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl is really, really good. I don't know how well advertised it was. I ended up seeing it because I went to, like, the second-run theater, but it's a really good story.
I feel like I saw ads for it constantly, but I think that I almost always saw them during, like, we'd watch The Daily Show at 10, and it was commercials for that constantly. So, yeah, but, no, I did want to watch it, though, because I liked the commercials that I saw. It looked interesting. I was so happy about the new Mad Max because I've been such a big Mad Max fan for so long, and I've loved those movies for as long as they've been around. And when they said, "Oh, we're making a new one," I was like, it made me nervous. But the thing was, I mean, they tried. Like, I just saw a thing online recently, and it was a note that George Miller, the director and writer, wrote in 1999 on a flight from like L.A. to Australia. So he was there for a long time on the plane, and he basically wrote the synopsis of the movie back in '99. Like, a couple of names have changed and a couple little things here and there have tweaked, but otherwise he's had that movie planned for like a long time.
Wow.
And it took them forever to film it, and they had to start and stop several times. And it's just, I love that movie so much. I'm such a big fan. What are we doing over here, Kris?
Kris is losing it. We're in the 2 hour mark, so he's going a little loopy.
Well, that's like an hour later there, isn't it, Kris?
Yeah.
I think it's 2 hours later than Mountain Time with my time frame.
Well, I'm in Central, so yeah.
You're on Eastern Time, aren't you, Kris?
I am on Eastern Time.
Yes.
Wow. Maybe I should let you go home to your family.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah,
I mean, not to say we're not,
no,
not to say we're not having fun.
We're having fun. I'm having
We're
fun.
having fun, and so that's why I've been
call it a painting den, but I'm having fun.
good up until this point. No, I was just showing everybody. That was a quick tour of my office for anybody who was watching my little corner of the window.
Kind of a quick tour of your nose too. At one point.
Yeah,
Kind
your eyeball.
Yeah.
And the eyeball. The eye of Sauron.
Blah. Fury Road is a good point to end on, though. That one's...
Fury Road? Oh, it was awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Loved it. Bought it right away.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
One of the few movies I've ever seen that could maintain action that long while still being interesting.
Yeah.
Possibly the only movie I've known to do that.
It's just so different in comparison to so many other movies. There's just so many parts of it that are just... it just made me so happy when it came out and it was that good. And not only I thought it was that good, but a lot of other people thought it was that good. I mean, it's still, like on Metacritic, has got like a 95% or something crazy like that.
Which it should. I mean, that...
Yeah, oh yeah. But I mean, there's so many times where I'm like, oh, I love this movie, and then, critics poo-poo it or whatever.
Well, because, I mean, like, yeah, if that had came out like 10 years ago or, 15, 20 years ago, yeah, it would have been shot right down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now in this age where it's almost like the same kind of respect you give to like Death Proof, where Tarantino used actual cars for the stuff,
right,
stuff like that, right? And there's no CG, and it's these directors going against the grain kind of thing to give people kind of what they want, and that's I mean, like, Fury Road has tons of CG in it.
Sure, it's just not where
subtle.
it's very subtle. It's like, well, we have to fix this background. We have to put in this mountain. But it's not, we're going to make this car CG. That stuff all happened.
Polecats and everything, that was all real, so.
Yeah.
Imagine insurance on that picture was a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
But,
no, that was an excellent movie. I loved it. And what I really liked about it was that it didn't fill in any gaps as far as Mad Max's life is concerned in this post-apocalyptic world. That could have been any chapter in his life, other than after he was captured in the third movie, even in the second movie. I mean, it seems more like it takes place between the second and third movie kind of thing, right? I love the universe that Miller created. I mean, like, the whole thing with
also feels very 40K for the record.
Yeah,
it's very orky,
and you want to know more. And the one scene that I always loved was as soon as we saw the people on stilts at night, and I'm like, what the hell's that about? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
What's the deal with those people? Like, what's going on? Why are those people on stilts in the middle of the night? Like, are they fishing? Like, are they...
I think there was something either in the comic book that explained a bit more about that.
Really?
Or maybe, I think it was either that, or it's because I've also got the video game, and it might be explained further on in the video game than I am currently. But I know I read someplace something about how, like, there's some explanation, but it's not in the movie, and that's kind of interesting the way that you can do that now in the in the multimedia kind of world that we live in. But I like the fact that they didn't have to really explain what was going on there.
Yeah, you're not missing anything as far as your experience with that movie.
Yeah, you're enriching yourself in that universe more.
Yeah.
By playing the video game and immersing yourself in it. And that's another one too. Is like what happens when VR and stuff like that really starts to take over, and we're living the movie next. Where stories aren't told in such a linear fashion for film that we all love and enjoy, but they're told more like a video game, because video games are pretty much movies today for the 21st century, really.
In a lot of ways, but a movie is still such a passive medium. I think it's always going to have an appeal because
right,
because you get home and you want to be taken for a ride on a movie, whereas a video game, it's you.
But imagine more like how like a book, and remember choose your own adventure storybooks.
Yes.
Choose your way. Well, imagine now a video game is more like a choose your own adventure type movie, where you can choose the outcome of how the story plays out because you are interacting, versus a regular, film stock movie where, you are just you're just the observer. You have no say in the story.
Ugh, that sounds terrible. I want to see what a good writer can put together. I want to be shown. I love being told stories. I don't know that my input in there is really what. I don't want to
make the story go
direct
anywhere
what
you
the
like.
outcome's going to be, because I'm always going to do it. Just based on who I am, I would always go perhaps the same way on any given story.
But there's so many movies out there right now that are pretty decent, but have crap ass endings, like that Citizen one with Gerard Butler and.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Oh yeah, fine, upstanding citizen, something like that.
Yeah, law-abiding citizen. Anyway,
law-abiding citizen. Yep.
That movie pissed me off at the end. That movie has such a BS ending. I was pissed off at that, and I'm frothing at the mouth right now, already just talking about it, because that movie gets me right worked up, because the movie, the villain was so smart and so clever and ahead of everybody. He's such a Hannibal Lecter the entire way that all of a sudden he just forgets one tiny little detail and his entire thing blows up, and is like this James Bond-esque type villain where, it's a one little thing he slipped up and now his entire plan has been foiled. Give me an effing break. No.
I think that can be solved with better writers.
Certainly.
No, I think what it is, it's when they screen these. And they go to before a committee.
Yeah.
And then they change them. And that's where, and so unfortunately, with so many movies made today, that writers don't get to do exactly what they want, and they have to go to before a committee and make their story and plead their case that this is how the story should go, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but that is more of an inherent problem in that movie making system.
In the Hollywood,
in the general Hollywoodness of everything, yeah. But whereas you can go with independent films and the guys can tell their own tales, and unfortunately, though, with independent, is you might have a favorite movie in independent, and I might have a favorite movie, but the two movies that are just great, we might not see each other's favorite movie because nobody talks about him. 10 people talked about it and said it was such a fantastic movie. His camera work was great. His character was so beloved. But I'd never see it because it's not on the general airwaves. It's not on,
So yes and no. The internet has changed that ballpark a lot.
Yes and no. I'm my job is the internet, and I'm not on the internet that much.
I think that people who like movies a lot and who like to see weird independent stuff, they're definitely going to internet. There's a channel or a website or something like that called Shudder, like SHUDDER, and it's all horror, and it's all independent horror. Well, it's not all independent horror. It's curated, but it's also a lot of independent horror. And I think that as time goes by, you're going to see more people like. The director of the film that I was in, he's working on his next feature film, and he doesn't want to look to distribution, and he doesn't really want to look to film festivals because he's had bad experiences now with both of them, and he's like, I want to figure out a new way to do it myself and do it differently. So that's kind of interesting, I think, that way, and I think that now is the time when you can do it versus even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, definitely this day and age we live in now. It is a lot easier for writers, directors, actors, whoever, to get seen on the internet now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you guys familiar with, since we're talking horror, Marble Hornets?
Nope.
It is a web series that got huge. In fact, I think it got a movie deal out of its web series. But check it out, Marble Hornets on YouTube. It's freaky, but it's just a web series that's all horror and is very effective for being so low budget, especially. But that's one of the things about horror is it tends to lend itself better to less effects.
Yeah,
so it's a low budget versus dream.
Independent films end up going towards independent filmmakers. There's so many more horror independent filmmakers than there are. Nobody is an independent romantic comedy director. You know what I mean? That just doesn't seem to happen.
No one's gonna want to watch your stuff because you watch a romantic comedy for the actors.
Right, exactly. So but the horror stuff. I mean, we used to have at the community theater. We used to have this horror film festival, and we would get stuff from all over the world. And because there was no fee, there was like a lot of film festivals you had to pay like $50 or $100 or $200 to put your movie in, and we were just like, send us your movie and we'll look at it. We won't play them all probably, but there's 2 days, so you know. And so at one point, like 2 years ago, they had 700 movies to go through, you know, short films and stuff like that. And luckily, there's an online system that's affiliated somehow with IMDb, withoutabox.com, something like that. Anyway, that kind of stuff. You know, we were looking at movies that some were getting into distribution, and some of them nobody had ever seen before. You know, and it was cool, but horror is really where the independent stuff seems to come. That's where it comes most, honestly, because the people who really like that stuff, they want to make their own horror movies, and it's not that difficult anymore. You know, making independent sci-fi is difficult in comparison, usually.
Yes. Well, sci-fi tends to need a bigger budget, and you can do a lot of stuff, but horror's a lot easier.
Yeah.
It's probably easier to get actors for too.
Because like sets, you just use generally a set. You know, you just go and use somebody's house or go downtown or whatever. But if it's sci-fi, well, then you got to have space buildings and space couches and whatever. And that's kind of a problem. Or God forbid if you go with a western or something like that, you can't just have a western downtown. You know, I mean that's not going to work.
Yeah. That's also, I think, part of why post-apocalyptic is pretty popular, because it's not so hard to find places like that.
You just go to a strip mall and that isn't used anymore, and then you film it there. And
I mean, finding abandoned buildings isn't so hard.
Not hard at all.
Film in Detroit.
Exactly.
It Follows was shot in Detroit.
Yeah, It Follows, but that's right. It Follows was shot mostly in Detroit, which is why it kind of looks like it does, probably. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's really effective.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I'm going to call it here, guys. We've been yammering on for over 2 hours.
That's true.
Having a blast, but
yammer?
I got things to do tonight, too.
Okay, so what are we going to do for next show?
Well, it'll be next month, and we'll schedule it out so people know about it in advance and kind of do a lot of the same thing, see what other progress we've made on our...
I think we should do, like, homework, like, movies from, like, now until then.
Oh, my goodness. What kind of homework?
I don't know. We should, like some sort of subject. I mean, this has been fun. Don't get me wrong, but if we maybe have like a direction we're going, it might to the viewers be a little bit more interesting. We're having a good time. I don't know about anybody watching, you know, if they're having a good time, but yeah, we'll have to think about that maybe a little bit online, and then we'll aim towards that.
You don't want to do more homework, Miranda?
All right.
What kind of homework are we talking about here?
I don't know. I was just.
Is there a worksheet? I don't want to do any worksheets.
Well, no. Like I was thinking, okay, like what movies we watch from now until the next time we sit down and do this.
Well, that's all I was thinking. That's
I can keep track of that. So yeah, we can do that. I was also going to suggest, if you wanted, finding an independent movie that maybe people haven't so much heard of that you love and want to share.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look into some stuff like that.
Yeah.
We'll come up with something, I'm sure.
See, that's it.
We'll figure it out.
It wasn't hard.
I'm sure.
Work it out right now.
Yes, because I need more projects. Anyway.
Same here.
Thank you guys so much for coming out. Thank you to our audience who hung out with us this whole time. 2+ hours of us blathering on, somewhat painting models. I bet Adam was probably the most diligent about that.
I got 5 skeletons who are now more bone colored than they were when I sat down, so that's helpful.
That's good.
Yeah.
At least you got some work done.
Skeletons should be bone colored.
And Miranda, you got some painting done?
Yeah, I've got more blue on my
More blue?
demon.
Okay, you're handling the model.
Hasn't even painted yet.
Get it on the stand. Attitude now.
I'm just gonna drop him anyway after he's painted. I don't see why I should care now.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. I didn't get nothing done. I got some stuff attached to cork. That was about it.
That's something.
Shot of your eyeball, and I think your nostril earlier.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, hold on.
So, anyway, until next time, we're going to go off the air now, guys. Thanks so much again for watching, and don't forget, check out Chris's Wave the Brush and Adam's Tabletop Minions. And, of course, me. But you're already on my channel, so
right.
you know about me. All right. Bye, guys.